You're listening to a Sales Culture Toddcast with Todd Cohen.
Hey everyone, it's Todd Cohen, and welcome to a special edition of my Sales Culture Toddcast. I have to say, as a side note, I love saying Toddcast because I never thought my name Todd really was good for much other than the fact that it rhymes with podcast. So actually, I love my name. You know, when I was growing up, I didn't like it all that much because people used to go Toad or something like that, and I used to really hate that. But actually, I love my name now. It's kind of hip. So anyhow, welcome to this special edition of my Sales Culture Toddcast. Now, normally, as you know, I release these on Tuesdays because, well, that sounds good. Todd Cohen's Sales Culture Tuesday Toddcast. Say that 10 times fast. But I'm recording this on a Thursday. It doesn't really matter other than it just kind of makes me smile. Okay, so here's what we're going to talk about. You know, I've been doing a lot of keynotes and workshops, as you know, and I've been thinking a lot about leadership and what leadership really means. And what's so interesting to me is, you know, over the years, I've seen or read or skimmed or heard countless people talk about leadership and what it means and the new leadership and the old leadership and the redefinition of leadership. And there's some really, really good stuff out there. Frankly, there's some real garbage out there. And I'll also suggest that there's some things out there that people are regurgitating and they're just saying, well, this has been around forever. We're just going to look at it through a new lens. Now, my point here is not to, denigrate anybody's perspective on leadership, because I do respect everything. I do also enjoy when I see something which is new and a nugget here and a nugget there. And, leadership is one of those things where, I don't know, there's just an awful lot of people out there who have something to say on it. Let me say that I'm not usually one of them. However, today I'm going to break that just a little bit because I want to share something which I'm really passionate about, and I think it does put a different lens on leadership. And let me also say, this isn't me just coming up with this in a vacuum. I've spent a lot of time with the CEOs and the senior leadership, senior management of a lot of my keynote and workshop clients, talking about how they view leadership, what they see as good leadership and bad leadership, and something they have actually offered to me. Because, as I always say, it doesn't matter what you think you do. It matters what your customers, your clients, how they see it, how they find value from it. So what I'm going to share with you is something I've been working on, and I've posted a few times on my LinkedIn page, and I call it the 7 principles of new leadership. Now, before you smirk or roll your eyes, I know what I just said, and I'm going to look at leadership through a different lens, through the lens of my core competency, my core passion, which is building a sales culture. I think leaders, true leaders, need to do something that isn't done nearly enough. It's something that leaders give a lot of lip service to. They just don't do it. And that's bring down silos. I have been saying for years, as part of my keynotes and my workshops, silos kill companies. Silos isolate people. Silos keep people from collaborating. They are a guaranteed quick road to mediocrity. And silos simply have no healthy purpose in an organization. They prevent people from doing really what is the most basic element. That's building relationships across the organization. Now, I could talk for days on silos. However, I'm not going to. I'm going to spend a few minutes with you, and hopefully you'll stay with me as I go through my application of sales killing things. Silos kill sales. My application of how silos hurt companies, through the lens of what does this mean for leadership? How does this impact people wanting to be leaders? So the first thing I want to say, and the first thing I really want to impress, is that I believe passionately leaders lead when they no longer allowed people to hide away in their silos. You know what? Hiding in a silo is not a guarantee of job security. Hiding in your silo is not a guarantee of anything. In fact, you know what? I always say, just because you can hide doesn't mean they can't find you and doesn't mean they can't fire you. I lived through the 2008, 2009, 2010 downturn. I was put out of work overnight. And it amazed me at how many people who were like me in transition used to say, thought nobody could find me. And I would say, yeah, you're in a silo, but they did find you. Silos kill companies. Leaders know instinctively that silos are bad. Why do silos happen? Well, that's a whole nother course of conversation, which I am more than happy to get into. But you know what? There's no good reason. Silos happen because, people, want to build their own fiefdom. Silos happen because people have, need for control. Silos happen because it's what we've allowed to happen. But, there's just no good reason for them. And I would definitely love to have that debate with somebody who can tell me why silos are healthy to a company. So number one, leaders lead when they no longer allow people to hide in those silos. They say, you know what? You can't hide. Number two, I think leaders understand that when people are isolated in a silo, developing them, giving them training has limited impact. I think it's true because you know what? Training is only as good as your ability to share what you know, use that knowledge for the betterment of the organization, not just for your department or your group, but for the betterment of the organization. In other words, as I always like to say, you know what? We're all in sales, which means we have to bring down silos and we have to think long and hard about how the training I just received really impacts the broader vision of the company, not just me or my team. Granted, there's exceptions to everything. And of course, you want to train and develop people individually and as a group in their specific skill set. But don't you also want to train people how to come out of their silo and use what they've learned to help the customer, the ultimate customer, say yes? You think about that. Next, I believe leaders create a culture of purpose that drives a culture of profits. It was one of my clients who first shared with me this idea of culture of purpose, and it came up this way. I had just finished a keynote, and what was so interesting, we were talking about how everyone's in sales and building a sales culture, and I was doing the piece on value proposition. How do you define your value proposition? In other words, what do you do? Not your title, not your silo, not your department. What do you actually do? And I had a CEO come up to me and say, you know what, Todd, you've really made me think differently about this because we wrap up our self-identities in our titles, but that has nothing to do with our purpose. And the more we allow people to be in silos, that means I'm not a good leader. I wish I had had a tape recorder, but that's in essence what he said he got from my keynote. When we build a culture of purpose, that drives a culture of profits. When people know what they do it over and over and over again because that helps other people engage them in a way that says, I need what you do. I need your intellectual skill. I need what you know to help me help a client say yes. Which leads me to the next principle of the 7 principles of new leadership. Leaders are excellent at flipping the script, and they lead when every decision, every conversation, every issue is seen through the lens of how does this help our clients say yes? Now, I want you to think about that for a second. Think about a time you've been in a meeting and everybody's going around the table, giving their input or their opinion or whatever. And how many of those opinions, how much of that input is really about them and their team, and how much of it is really about how what we do collectively is all about helping a customer, a client say yes? I can almost guarantee you the answer is not nearly enough. Just last week, I had a client, one of my coaching clients, come back to me and say, I went to our 5-year strategic plan meeting, and I answered every question by starting with these words. How is this conversation, how is this topic ultimately help our clients say yes to our company? And I asked him what the reaction was. He said 35 other people stopped dead in their tracks got silent because you can't argue the point. You see, if you argue it, what you're saying is, I'm only concerned about my silo. And if you're only concerned about your silo, then you shouldn't be in the organization, because what you're saying is, it's all about me. It's all about my stuff. And what you're saying is, it's not about the customer. You see, leaders flip the script and say, we're going to change the conversation. We're going to make the conversation seen through a very different lens of everyone's in sales. How is what we do impact the customer's decision to say yes? That's the only conversation we want to have. I think also leaders lead when they acknowledge that the three most damaging words in a company are, I'm just the. You know, that's the classic, I'm in a silo, I'm hiding in my silo, please don't hold me accountable. Those three words are the deadliest words to a career, to a company, to an individual, and to somebody's own concept of how they impact the company in a positive way. Leaders lead because they never forget that their top priority, or I should say a top priority. I mean, I'm sure we could argue for days about what's the top priority of a leader. Well, you know what? Why are we in business? Because customers keep us there, because our talent internally helps us get better, because we have people who are passionate. We have people who really love what they do. So our job as a leader, your job as a leader, and I don't care what your title is, let me tell you, because everybody is a leader if they so see themselves that way. Leaders never forget that their top priority is that people see the bridge, the connection between what they do, that value proposition, and why it matters. In other words, you never miss an opportunity to say, hey, listen, what you did today helped this happen, which ultimately impacted the customer's decision to say yes. Finally, leaders lead when they do what I am completely passionate and committed to, building a sales culture. Leaders lead when they build a sales culture and they reject soundly a siloed culture. What does this mean? It means that we understand that silos kill companies. We understand everyone's in sales. We understand that we collectively are the reason why our clients say yes. Hey, I'm not giving this lip service. This is more than customer service. This is more than how we answer the phone. This is more than all that goody, two shoes, lip servicey stuff we hear about. When was the last time you approached somebody and said, you know what? 3 weeks ago, 3 months ago, 3 years ago, whatever, what you did, you don't even realize it, had a systemic and downstream effect on our organization. And today a client said yes because of what you did on that day and that time. You want to solve the problem of employee retention? Do that. Leaders build sales cultures. They reject a siloed culture. Now listen, I'm going to wrap this up. This is the 7 principles of new leadership. You can see I've even shared this with you on the screen here. I'm really serious about this, folks. What kind of a leader do you want to be when it comes to silos? I'll leave you with this note. Silos kill companies. They do. They kill them dead. When an entire company hears this message, they get energized, they get charged up, and just one more positive outcome pays for me tenfold. That's it. I'm Todd Cohen. Hey, go be a leader. Build a sales culture. See you soon.
To hear more exciting Toddcasts or to book Todd Live for your event, please visit toddcohen.com/book-Todd. That's toddcohen.com/book-Todd, or call 866-515-9445.